Hello and welcome back to Oxygen Not Included. Let's play episode 60. I forgot to start recording at basically the start of this cycle, so you've missed roughly a cycle worth of progress, but I'll cover it really quick before we start the episode. So the transit tube access point that we had over here, I've kind of rearranged things so that we have basically a gymnasium on this side, and then just the transit tube access and a battery on this side. It's still being built, and I've wired it up with conductive wire. We did a couple little housekeeping things over here. For one, I put this natural gas generator on a automation wire because I'm interested in pumping out a lot of this natural gas from this natural gas geyser now that it's dormant. I want to conserve that natural gas and potentially put it down here. So having this run 24/7 is a little bit less good for us as a result. I mean, having it run when it was just burning natural gas that otherwise would have been stuck in the geyser and not able to be released onto the map was fine. But adding this automation wire will mean that we'll be a little bit more conserving of this resource in the future. Not that I really need to run these metal refineries that much at this point. I kind of have a ton of steel. Yeah, I've got 13.4 tons of steel. I've got plenty of other refined metals. I've got basically another 26 tons of other refined metals. A lot of it being iron, because we're going to turn that into steel. So that it's just something to conserve some resources here during this dormancy period and make sure that I have access to this in the future and potentially more natural gas for this system down here, which also is just a little bit excessive. I mean, we have tons of glass as well. We're coming up on 2 tons. And there was one other change that I made, which is that I just rearranged this pipe. This pipe used to flow through here, like so. Now I changed this so that the CO2 that had accumulated in this gas reservoir now got pumped down to the slicksters. Making one of those 2 changes probably would have been sufficient to deal with this. Either way, so those 2 things we changed, and then we changed a little bit of this layout, but otherwise you didn't miss much at all. So, okay. Let's that out of the way. Let's get to the episode. So, in the previous episode, we talked a little bit about this coolant loop up here. And one of the neat things, if I pause this, so we have this loop going around where we have new, fresh coolant being pumped in, and then we have old coolant kind of being cycled along like this. One of the interesting things about this setup is that if we were to cut this input pipe, that it would still continue to infinitely flow. Right, that it would just the water would take this bridge as a priority, and it would continue pumping around as long as we were able to have just a little gap in the system, a little gap of air in the system. It would work. And this little offlet right here ensures that whenever we cut this, there will be that little gap. We'll have a little bit just flow into here, fill up this reservoir. And then the rest will go on its merry way. So this is an easy way to create just a simple coolant loop to bring 2 areas into thermal communication with one another. We're using it in this instance to hopefully pump a lot of coolant down from up from our industrial sector over here, all the way up here, and then we're going to create a large reservoir, which we're going to do a lot of cooling stuff with. And I think use it to produce some oxygen and whatnot. But we're not in really a huge rush to dump this coolant somewhere. Like, I'm fine if this fills up because we're just going to create another one and we're going to make progress across the map like this. We really just wanted to get this bunker tile under 75 degrees, which we've been able to do. That way dupes aren't scalding when they come up here. And as we need more coolant, we'll change things accordingly. So, okay, let's move along. We want to set up this apparatus that we planned in the previous episode. That way we can start getting oxygen and power up to our Atmos station. And then dupes will be able to work across pretty much this entire area, hauling in regolith and mafic rock that's hot and depositing it somewhere that's ideally going to be quite cool. We kind of want to, therefore, do a few things. One is have a plan for where we're going to take all this regolith and other hot stuff and what we're going to do with it. And that is going to involve creating some sort of cooling area. Likely a cooling area that's going to be combined with like a heating area for the ice. Right, so we basically just want a large pool of water that we are then going to put a lot of hot and cold things into. The cold things so that we can get more water, the hot things so that we can cool them off for use in the rest of our base. New duplicant. None of them have diver's lungs. That is the stipulation, of course, of this draft. Or not this draft, what am I talking about? Stipulation of this run is that we are only taking dupes with diver's lungs. Okay, so to that end, I want to create a large reservoir somewhere. And I'm not particularly picky about where, but I want to create some place for duplicants to drop off their materials. And I'm thinking that the best place to create that reservoir, at least for now, is going to be down below the base here. We will need to, as a result, provide drywall in this location, but we have just sort of a natural basin that we can form using this abyssalite. I think we're going to do it basically right here. And this is going to be the reservoir that we use to put a lot of our ice that we're going to mine out from here, and regolith and mafic rock from up here. We do have choices, though. It doesn't have to be here now that I think about it. We could, if we're willing to take the hot stuff and move it over a little bit more, we could create that spot right here. The downside is that right now this is helping cool this area and preventing it from overheating, and if we change that, if we remove some of this, we're going to lose that cooling, and then we're going to have to deal with the overheating of this area sooner rather than later. So yeah, I think what we're going to do is that we are going to create a sort of basin here, and we're going to use the abyssalite for now as a way of containing all of the temperatures in here. But in the long run, we are willing to expand it to, say, this hydrogen area, and use this hydrogen for power or what have you. So for now, let's just create for ourselves a little basin. Yeah, and we'll use plastic. Okay, I think I got this. We're going to create for ourselves sort of abyssalite basin here. And we'll mine out this as well. And it's going to look basically like this. I should have checked beforehand which of this has space exposure. I imagine a lot of it does, but just so we know. So I want to dig all the way down to here, and that means that our... Alright. Our space exposure begins right here. This is exposed to space, this is not. Okay. So we're going to go with utilities, drywall, and we're just going to slap down a bunch of mafic rock. Not that, I mean, maybe we should be using something else, something a little bit more thermally conductive, but I think we're going to be fine. I don't think we're going to have to worry too much about the way that the water temperature works. Space exposure across here, the entire way, all the way through here. None here. None here, if I got that right. So it continues all the way out to here. And then space exposure all the way up top. And then this is the point of transition right here. And here. Here. And here. Okay. Did I get this correct? No, there's one more. Like so. Like so. Okay. So all this area kind of highlighted here. We can dig this out. And the rest of this we are going to want to replace with drywall. So we're going to say mafic rock needs to be all across here, and then everything higher than this as well. Okay, got it. Utilities, drywall, mafic rock, because it's what's available. And just paint it across like so. Alright, so this is going to be our reservoir, through which where we're going to dump a bunch of ice and hot stuff, and basically just let it reach a sort of thermal equilibrium. We can also use this as a reservoir for this cooling loop that we have, but for now it's just going to be sort of a dumping place to generate more water out of whatever ice we get out of here, and to cool down this regolith and mafic rock that we draw in from the surface. Okay. I'm also going to want a plastic ladder going down. That way we can reach all of this. And then we'll just use some... we could use mafic rock for this as well. So let's go with... let's go with granite. Well, let me see. We want some overheat temperatures, potentially. Yeah, so let's not do mafic rock for that. Let's do igneous rock, that's fine. And we are going to skip our way across like so. And yeah, like so. Okay, so now we have our reservoir. Actually, let me add just a little bit more. Alright. So that's an area for us to work on. This, again, just going to be a large reservoir, and we are going to put in there a bunch of storage bins, which will hold ice and hot materials and all that good stuff. Okay. We also need to worry a little bit about any regolith falling. To the extent that happens, that would be bad. Looks like it's only going to be that one little bit. Let's go ahead and slap some mafic rock down here then. And our dupes will get to work on that. This is all sealed off right now. Ultimately what we're going to do is once we get these suits delivered, let's go ahead and put a bunch of suits in here. Perfect. Job mastery. It is Herald. Herald. Let's have you work as a gopher now. Excellent. There's some risk that they trap themselves down here. That can happen. And this plumbing loop should have stopped now, because there's no room left in the system. But the thing is that we're just going to pump it to another cooling system, which is going to cool the next part, and so on and so forth. And then at some point we'll decide to take that water out and run it through, you know, some sort of sieve or whatever. Once it's reached a temperature that we say is hot enough, that's what we'll do with it. There's no real concern right now because, again, it's at 37 degrees here, it's at 32 degrees here. It's actually colder here because we've been getting a little bit hotter water out of the, coming up from the industrial zone to replace the first water that we put out there. So it's actually colder having gone through this heating loop, but that's not too much of an issue. We will have an issue, of course, if we let this polluted water get up to its vaporization point. But until then, we're good. And there's nothing really contributing to the heat of this bunker tile. So, you know, the system that it's in right now is fairly closed. There's a little bit of thermal communication with this tile right here. But it's not going to be terribly significant. So, we're working on this. And one of our options actually is we can just use polluted water if we care to as our coolant in this area and dump directly from this liquid reservoir down to that area if we so choose. In fact, that doesn't seem like a terrible idea. So if we go tile, granite, and build across like so, we'll lose a little bit of oxygen in this process, but at the moment not that much. That's a bad place for a narcoleptic nap. And we'll be able to then fill up, because this tile is here, we'll be able to fill up that whole area. Utilities, drywall. Let's again slap down some mafic rock. All across here is fine. Okay. They're working on that. We still have this designated as sweep only. We will eventually pause this designation and have them transfer to the colder area, because this is still pretty hot. It's not at 100 degrees. It's cooled down a little bit since then. Maybe we can still actually see. Yeah, it's hotter than the. We built its friend here. He's at 28.3. This one's at 29.4. It's a little hotter, but not in a hugely significant way. Okay, they're working on that. Let's go down and see if there are any other little housekeeping things we want to work on. I like having this whole system up here. And off they go. Perfect. Molten glass. Let's up the priority of this a little bit. So I think it's important that it get done. This one's also still important. Getting petroleum is important, but we're actually going to start considering using the petroleum as our sort of in-game cooling loop. So one of the things to note, let me pause here so we can read it and I'm not distracted by other stuff that goes on. One of the things of note is that the petroleum generator, it outputs carbon dioxide and polluted water, and it outputs these outputs at the temperature of the generator, which is very significant because you can cool this generator down an extraordinary amount and then have this cold CO2 and cold water pump out. You do want, of course, the CO2 to be above the liquid point of carbon dioxide. You do want the polluted water to be above its freezing point. That isn't that hard to do. In fact, usually you kind of have the other problem that it's a little bit too hot. But we can take oil. Let me go to elements, liquids, petroleum. We can take petroleum and we can heat it up all the way to potentially 500 degrees, though at that point we risk some damage to various buildings unless we're using something with a very high overheat temperature. Steel won't take care of this, for example. A lot of the space materials are what we need to accomplish this. But we can heat, in theory, the petroleum up to, say, 200 degrees, 250 degrees, and then run it through a petroleum generator, and that petroleum generator could produce, out of that 250 degree petroleum input, it can produce near freezing water as a result. So you have this sort of great ability to cool a lot of stuff off with the oil. And so over time we're going to be more concerned not with generating plastics out of this oil, but we're going to be more concerned with generating petroleum and using that petroleum to delete large amounts of heat through the process of creating electricity, right? So it's kind of a great bang for our buck. So this whole area, eventually, we're going to want to tap as much of this oil as we can, and then we're going to want to have a very large slickster operation with all of our CO2 being pumped down here to ultimately manage all of this stuff. Yeah, getting our petroleum up here is going to be one of the things we're ultimately going to work on. because it's so useful in that sense as a coolant. It's got a very high temperature at which it turns into a gas, which is important because that determines how much heat you're going to be able to, or how much you're going to be able to raise the temperature before it causes problems in your pipes. Also has a fairly high thermal capacitance, which means it's able to absorb a lot of heat per unit of mass before it goes up in temperature. Okay. Pretty basic stuff for people who've taken thermodynamics, I suppose, or at least that terminology isn't that crazy. If it's new stuff to you, that's great. Learning is a fantastic thing, and this game is great at helping people learn this sort of stuff. So, this is reachable, right? They're just lazy. Okay. Let's go ahead and raise the priority on some of this, because I think getting it done sooner is good. And then we're going to, I think, start mining out some of the stuff and setting up our space base. We will want to get our bunker up here. But yeah, just so we can shield ourselves after we clear all this stuff up. But we're going to start wanting to set up our bunker doors, and setting up our controls for those bunker doors, and set up, in addition, this should be oxygen. And let's go ahead and set this to, I suppose 50 is fine. We will say break starts at, break starts at 30, break ends at 0. Because this should be connected up automation-wise, yeah, just to the coal generator. Okay, how are we doing over here? This is still pretty cool. That's great. Yeah, we're digging out this large reservoir. This is going to be great for us. I'm wondering if we should replace this part with tile. That way when I mine out this abyssalite, we don't have any sort of leakage. Maybe that's a good idea. But first, let's patch up a little hole right here. And I think we'll patch up this as well, just for aesthetics. Okay. So, this is all powered up. Perfect. It's just a matter of getting this to run now. We'll set these priorities to 6. Let's start getting this pump running, because the sooner we get this pump running, the more we're going to have oxygen diffuse up here. Like, we see this process is all right, but this has taken a lot of time for all this oxygen to get up here. We want to start this pumping process sooner. That way, why is this not pumping? Pipe blocked. Oh, because this is not built, because this is unreachable. Okay. Well, there's a solution to that. Let's cancel that, and let's just take the vent and put it right here. Take this, crank this up to an 8. Alright, perfect. Battery recharge threshold 0. No, that's incorrect. We'll set this at 40. Sure. Okay. Alright, so this should start running, and we should start supplying oxygen now to our suits. And as we create a vacuum here, that will draw up more of the oxygen from here, and basically just improve everything. Okay, perfect. Flooding. Yep. Critter starvation, building lacks resources. Gotcha. Okay. So as we do that, we will be digging out this reservoir where we are going to dump a lot of stuff. Yeah, perfect. We actually might want to consider closing this area off. No. I think this is still the way that we want to do things. We'll have them leave out through here. We can have them store things here temporarily, I suppose. No, I don't want to do that either. I want them to store it down here. Okay. Job's mastered. Meep. You've graduated from Gopher. Guess we're not going to send you back to school quite yet. Courier. And let's set the priority on this central ladder to be higher. Okay, new dupes available. Nope. Get him out of here. What's temperature like in here? Chilly, but not unbearable. That's fine. Yeah, we're just going to slowly fill these up. Okay, perfect. So, this is on its way. It's just going to need a little bit of time to run. Let's go through... I have 2 more Atmos suits. How many more do I need up here? I need 4. That's right. So I need to queue up 2 more Atmos suits right here. Do that. Got people stressed out a little bit here. I think that might be the next thing that we want to work on a little bit. So if I go to Vitals, what are the morale expectations looking like? Ruby, why is your morale low? Poor decor, poor meal, washroom. Have we shifted everybody to the correct consumables now? Okay, so everybody should be eating fried mushroom or better. So that might be just old feedback. Let's let things run a little bit before we begin tackling that morale problem. We do want to bring the stress down. Right now we are relying on our sort of de-stressing facilities. More molten glass, please. How are temperatures down here? Yeah, they're still fine. We're running off of this insufficient resources sand. Really? I am out of sand? Wow, okay. Sure. That went fast. How did that happen? We are really out of sand. I see sand right here. Alright. Well, let's get ourselves some access to more sand, shall we? Because a lot of our stuff relies on sand. That'd be a little bit unfortunate if we ran out of sand entirely here. And in fact, let's just do this. I suppose it's time to fire up the rock granulator and have some sand production going on. Might not be unreasonable. Alright. So, what do we want to turn into sand? A lot of options. Let's just start with some igneous rock. Oops. Queue up a lot of that. Usually it takes me a little bit longer to run out of sand. But some games that happens. We have more over here we can crack into. In fact, let's go ahead and grab this as well. Yeah, all our deodorizers run on sand. It's pretty important. I mean, we can use Regolith. In fact, we are using some Regolith. Alright. That is one tricky thing. Is there a way for me to force them to use Regolith? Let's also check our coal while we're at it. We have a decent amount of coal. Just to improve our coal a little bit, though. Let's go ahead and mine some more out. Sure. Just like this. Okay. This is slowly filling up with oxygen. We're just using these hamster wheels for now to do this. How much non-oxygen are we getting? There shouldn't be really that much at all. There should be a little bit of CO2 just from them breathing out. But otherwise it should just be pretty much straight up pumping oxygen. Yeah, and I think the main thing we want to tackle is just getting rid of this. Okay, so let's check vitals again, since we've had some time to run. And we'll just let it run as we do this. Poor meal. Why are you stressed? Morale, mainly. I'm sure having them run through a bunch of water and so on and so forth isn't that great. The decor is poor as well, but we're just not getting really any meal bonuses. It's largely because we're relying on all of these fried mushrooms. And not that much on our sleet wheat, which is all just wild sleet wheat at this point. Is this an Atmos suit? We have an Atmos suit all the way down here. Who dropped this Atmos suit? Come on, guys. Don't drop Atmos suits. That isn't cool. This water is still at a great temperature for us. I mean, it's heating up, but not by enough. Let's go ahead and extend this down. What is this? A little bit of crude oil from over here. Sure. Let's crank up the priority of that. Okay. Now, where were we? I think it's time to cut the episode. I've gone actually very long. I was not paying attention. I'm going to stop things here, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.